Book 18 seconds TC 458 and 459 from Volume 21 Kailash Chandra. Start. Madam Vice Chairman, it is rather unfortunate that on a subject like this, where the lives of millions of our countrymen are affected, we have to go by the limitations of time in offering our remarks, as a result of which I will not take the House to the various details which I would have liked to do. I would like to compress my remarks in as short a space as possible. Madam, a lot of the finance minister is not a happy one. If he receives bouquets from one side, he gets brickbats from the other. Our country is occupying such a crucial position in the underdeveloped countries of the world that the action of the finance minister will have repercussions not only in this country but outside the country as well. We have chosen the path of economic development in a planned manner, but as you are aware, economic development in an underdeveloped economy has to pass through very critical and trying times. The resources which are available to a developed economy, industrialized economy, are not available to a country like ours. That puts a limitation on our efforts to utilize the resources. The limited resources that are available to us to the best advantage possible. In the light of these factors, we have to judge the budget proposals that are before the House for discussion. We have also to consider one very important factor, and that is what were the economic conditions prevailing in the preceding year, because these are the things which will condition our action in future. The finance minister in his budget speech has given a review of the economic conditions prevailing in the country during the preceding year. It is no use denying the fact that last year we were rather unhappy. There was a shortfall in agricultural production. There was also an overall shortfall in industrial production. In view of those factors, we might be tempted to take a pessimistic view, but as you are aware, agricultural production in this country has to solely depend to a large extent on the vagaries of the monsoon. Even though our cultivated area in acreage is larger than the cultivated area in China, our production is less than that of China. One of the most important reasons is that the cultivated area under irrigation in India is 21%. In our country, still we are not utilizing modern techniques of production, but it is heartening to note that during the last 5 years or so, our consumption of fertilizers is increasing. Even then, without the assistance of irrigation, our agricultural production is not likely to improve. Similarly, we had a shortfall in industrial production. The reasons are many, but one of the dominant factors which is now controlling our industrial production is the availability of raw materials. We have to depend on raw materials from outside countries, and our foreign exchange resources do not permit us to import as many raw materials as we might desire. These are the factors which have impeded the growth of our industrial production, which in turn has affected the national income as such. Although last year the national income might not have increased, at least it had remained at the same level as that of 1986-87. A point was made by my honorable friend that the per capita income is going down. It is no doubt a fact that there is a slight fall in the per capita income in this country, but the reasons are quite obvious. Therefore, naturally, with the level of income, it is bound to show a fall in per capita income. These are factors which we have to bear in mind in order to chalk out the further course of action. Madam, no development can take place unless we are prepared to work hard, unless we are prepared to make sacrifices. today in our country so far as the financial resources are concerned. I can say that justifiable pride that our performance is raising the resources has actually exceeded the targets which were set before us by the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission in the 6th 5-year plan has fixed a target of Rs 850 crores to be raised by additional taxation. According to the appraisal of the 6th 5-year plan published by the Planning Commission, we have really speaking raised Rs 900 crores. Therefore, from the point of view of making revenue available to the states for the purpose of implementing the plan, it cannot be shifted to the shoulders of the people in the sense that they have not given the resources which were fixed by the Planning Commission. Under the circumstances, a natural question can be asked, what is the reason why our economy is not picking up? The reason was given in the appraisal that during the 2 years which were under review in that report, they had come to the conclusion. Madam Vice Chairman, the question of deficit financing has been raised in this House on several occasions. I am no financial or economic expert, but whatever common sense that I possess guides me in one direction, and it is this, that it would be unscientific and uneconomic to put a ceiling on deficit financing as such. I do not see any sanctity attached to a ceiling to be fixed, because if the production increases in the agricultural sector as well as in the industrial sector, there is no harm if deficit financing is resorted to. But if there is a shortfall in industrial or agricultural production, and even then if purchasing power is pumped into the system, it may be that inflationary pressures might arise. But our past experience shows that even if we accept the various estimates that we made regarding the volume of deficit financing till today, which might have amounted to Rs 900 crores or more, in spite of a volume of expenditure of that nature, we do not see those pressures which can be called as alarming. In a developing economy, some rise in prices is going to be inevitable, because whatever you might plan to spend may not produce immediate economic results. A project might take time to give you dividends. In that process, it is possible that for a certain period of time there might be rise in prices. Our experience shows that the volume of deficit financing that was resorted to in the past has been absorbed in the economy, and if we set up our effort and increase production in the future, I do not see any necessity to put a ceiling on deficit financing as such. Now, the resources which are required for running the administration have to be raised by the state in one or two ways. One of the ways is that the money which is required for current expenditure may be raised by taxation. The money which is needed for purposes of capital expenditure may be raised by borrowing. But if both these resources do not give us sufficient money to implement our program, then the government has no alternative but to resort to deficit financing. I would therefore suggest that efforts should be made to mobilize the savings of the people for development. I have been saying that there is surplus purchasing power in the rural areas. As you are aware, 70% of the population of the country reside in villages. The biggest industry that we have got is agriculture, and nobody can deny the fact that the return for agricultural produce has certainly increased, which has resulted in an increased purchasing power in the rural areas, and which is now being spent on higher consumption. It is for the purpose of retaining consumption of food grains that I am suggesting that we must make every effort to remove that surplus purchasing power for the benefit of society as a whole. We may get market loans to the extent that we desire, but our only hope of increasing the rate of development in the country lies in our success of small savings, because unless we intensify our efforts in mobilizing the resources lying in the rural sector, that saving is likely to be dissipated. I would therefore urge upon the Finance Minister to intensify his efforts and step up our target for small savings. Now, I will come to the question of taxation. The Finance Minister has made proposals for raising a further revenue of Rs 23 crores only. Even though on current account there is a deficit of Rs 82 crores, he has not thought it wise to raise the entire amount by taxation. In that direction, he has adopted the wisest course because the level of taxation that we have now reached is of such a nature that it may be that further raising of resources by taxation may hamper production, because the task of the finance minister is to evolve such a system of taxation that it does not hamper production, but in a way proves that as an incentive. Now, for that purpose, let me take the case regarding his proposals for direct taxation. I will make a reference to the taxation on companies. The finance minister has been assailed on both sides. Neither my friends sitting opposite nor the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry are satisfied. This very fact shows that the proposal of the finance minister is in the right direction. Those friends who opposed the withdrawal of the wealth tax on companies did not care to study the speech of the finance minister. If they had devoted certain time and attention and had the patience, they would have found in the budget speech itself that what he proposed was only absorbing the wealth tax on companies and the tax on excess dividend in his new proposals of taxing the companies. A great furore has been raised regarding doing away with the grossing of dividends.